I'm traveling, but I'm making sure to keep the same slow, easy rhythm to my days. With age, I seem to get worse at dealing with jet lag, though. It used to be so easy to travel west and just sleep in a little later. But now, I'm still trying to sleep in until 7 a.m. a week after arriving. Most mornings, I'm getting up way before the sun, and I sit quietly on the balcony, knitting in the dark and waiting for the birds to arrive to the pond behind the condo. It's a familiar pace and a rhythm I enjoy, even though I would appreciate a bit more sleep. My name is Sandra. I'm from Iceland, although I'm currently visiting the US. And I'm building an intentional, mostly handmade wardrobe, slowly and quietly over time. On this channel, I share my journey to this more sustainable handmade wardrobe, as well as my thoughts about clothing, self-image, and other musings about life. If you're new here, welcome. If you're returning, welcome back. I find it so interesting how old habits can resurface even years after they've been left behind. Maybe it's because I'm tired. Maybe it's something else. But I caught myself slipping into an old pattern of thinking yesterday. I had a good plan for filming and recording while away. I planned to film while packing and then while I was at the airport, on the plane, and so on. I didn't. I was a bit behind, so I didn't start packing until a few hours before leaving for the airport. So there was no time to record what I was packing. And then I felt awkward filming at the airport. And I lost some concentration once arriving here late in the evening. And besides, I was really just in the moment, catching up with my sister and enjoying the feeling of finally being on this trip. The next morning, I didn't film. I woke up at 3 a.m. and I couldn't fall back asleep. And then I kept pushing every day to start filming until I started getting a bit stressed. And then, while doing something unrelated, my inner critic stopped being a positive, encouraging push and just started being mean. The way it was years ago when I had low self-esteem and I didn't know my self-worth. I was so surprised. I thought that this version of my inner dialogue had been left behind many years ago, but there it was, trying to convince me that my value was lower and that I was failing to commit because I hadn't started recording yet. I'm glad that I caught this right away. I worked really hard for years, training my inner critic to be kind, supportive, and encouraging, so it was an easy shift back. This small, seemingly unimportant moment was such a good reminder that my brain has an algorithm and I am the one training it daily with what I allow myself to focus on and dwell upon. I'm making sure to speak to myself in the same way that I speak to my best friends, the way I speak to my daughters and to my granddaughters. Being supportive, showing grace and kindness to myself, supports me to be able to live and to feel better. So now that I'm back on track mentally, I'm not going to beat myself up about the landscapers coming to take care of the grounds when I finally started to film today. That's just the way things are right now, and that's part of the beauty of life. It's not perfect, but it's not meant to be. So how are you showing yourself kindness today? Is it grace that you need, like me? Or is it something else? Is it understanding? Forgiveness? Sleep? Is it logging off social media for a break from comparison? Or is it something else entirely? I hope whatever it is, that you manage to make room to take care of yourself however your needs are presenting. It's been so nice being back here in Florida. The weather has been really nice. I expected it to be a bit hotter, but this is my favorite time of year to be here. Yeah, I love being here at this time. Maybe not so much in August or September or or any of those hot and muggy months, but I love being here in April and May. The weather is great. The birds are so happy and there's flowers blooming, and yeah, it's great. I'm so grateful that you're joining me here today. It's been quite a challenge to actually sit down and record something, as you heard in my intro. And I did take, a few minutes where I was beating myself up about it, and then I realized that I was beating myself up about it and moved away from that. I'm still not sleeping properly. I'm waking up between 3 and 4 in the morning because that's 7 a.m. in Iceland, and my body is still really not dealing with this time shift very well. So I'm waking up really, really early, between 3 and 4, and I'm getting out of bed usually at around 5 because I'm not managing to fall back asleep. So my mind is a bit scattered and a little bit chaotic, but here I am anyway. Because it's the only way I know how to show up, is just to be authentic and do things from the heart. What I was planning on sharing with you during this podcast part of this episode is what I brought with me. Also, maybe if you're interested in watching, like, what is my thought process behind what I'm packing and what do I use when I pack. I actually travel quite a bit when I am doing my freelance work. I travel within Iceland usually, but I also, I do some traveling overseas as well. So I have a pretty good method usually for picking what I bring with me. But maybe because this trip is so long, I will be staying here for a bit over a month. It became a little more challenging to pack, and I feel like it usually is when I'm staying somewhere for a long time, like more than a week. Most of my trips are just a week long or 4 days or something like that, and then it's really easy to pick a project because you don't have to bring so much. And especially, when I'm working all day. I have trainings all day, and then in the evenings I'm usually planning, things for the day after, and so there's not as much time to knit when I'm actually working. I actually packed a lot of stuff. I think that I thought that I would not do anything other than knit, which of course is not true. But I've brought yarn for many, many projects. So my first and primary project is this one that I'm working on here. I shared this also in my last episode. I'm doing a test knit for Ásthildur, who is Hula on Instagram. And this is a summer top called Sóley Sumartoppur, which means the Soleil summer top. And I've been working on this primarily this whole time. I brought this also on the plane to knit because it was not this big. This is a tank top or a vest it's closed on the front like this, and then on the back it's 2 panels that will be tied together here with an I-cord, and there's an I-cord edging that will go on the neck and also in the armholes. So I'm quite excited to get this finished. I don't remember when the deadline is, but I'm trying to work on this. So this is really my focus project for my time here. But it's taking me quite a while, so I think I probably have like 10 more hours of knitting to do on this project. So I'm really anxious in trying to complete that in the next few days so that I can see how much yarn I used, and I can take some pictures of this and and get it blocked and everything. I have things to do before this pattern will be released, and I would really like to do that on time so that Ásthildur can release this when she was hoping to. And when I decided to pack this to take on the airplane, I had only finished this front panel, and I had cast on, I don't remember if it was just one of the front panel, no, the back panels, or both of them. But I was knitting on just a small section, and it was a really comfortable airplane knit. I have this bag from Mood, the Danish company, that I always take with me when I travel. It's so convenient because I can just slip it onto my wrist, and then I can knit while I'm standing in line, or when I'm waiting for my luggage, or when we're boarding, or when I'm walking to my gate. I can actually knit. And I mean, I would not bring a project this size to knit while I'm standing in line or waiting. But it's usually I have a pair of socks when I travel, so this is so convenient for that. And then when it's stored, this just slips in here, and it's just even easier to carry around. This is probably my favorite travel accessory, especially for knitting. Yeah. So when I plan on things that I take with me on the airplane when I knit, the first requirement is that it's small enough so it doesn't, take over my whole carry-on luggage. So this project was perfect for that. And then I usually I throw in all of the things that I need into a bag like this, for example, and I will take this. This is also from Mood. It's a little case for my notions. So usually in here I have a measuring tape, I have these very small scissors that are like this, and TSA never bothers with. Like they don't even open this when it's in my bag. I have some needle stoppers in here. I have progress keepers and stitch markers and a row counter like this. And this box is metallic, no, not metallic, magnetic on the bottom. So if I drop this when I'm on the airplane, nothing really falls out except for my scissors and this Floops needle, because the rest, and the needle stoppers, but the rest stays in. And I think that's just so convenient to have on the airplane. So I have this with me when I travel, and I also always have like these cords to move my project onto, just in case it gets taken away at the airport. Like if they want to take my needles, then at least I want to be able to move my work to something else. But as I said earlier, I travel quite a bit, and I've never had a problem with needles on a flight. It does depend on where you're flying from, though, and it seems to depend also maybe on the airline that you're flying with. The only time that I've ever had any kind of problem with my knitting on flights is when I was flying to Turkey in 2021. I was flying through Berlin, so the German TSA, what do you call it, like the security people, they didn't find any problem with my knitting, so I went through that without anything. But when I was knitting on the airplane, the flight attendant came over. She was very unhappy with me. She wanted to take my knitting, and she said that it was not allowed on the airplane, and was very upset that I managed to get this through security and things like that. So it does seem to maybe also depend on the airline. So when I was flying back home through Istanbul, I just decided to not take any chances with knitting on the airplane. So I just stuck that into my packed luggage, like my checked-in luggage. But otherwise, I've never had a problem with this, and even especially when I'm flying in the States, because in the States it's never been a problem. And if you go on the TSA website, you can check to see what you're allowed to bring, and they have like a little search window. And usually before traveling to the States, I just double check knitting needles on there, and so far they're always allowed. I don't remember if there's maybe like a size limit to them, but my needles are always so small that I don't need to be wary about that. So that's never been a problem so far. But I also bring, when I'm traveling, I also bring this little case. This is also from Mood, and it's meant to be like a page in a binder like this. You put this into a binder, but I really love how small this is. So when I travel, I look at the yarn that I'm taking with me, and I put all of the needles that I might need into this, and then I have my, I hope this isn't, yeah, I was going to say I hope it isn't too loud by the microphone, but this is where I store my cords. So I have a few different lengths of cords so that I can use this for any project. So I really love this case. The only thing that I would change is that these metal things are quite heavy, but otherwise I love this to store my travel essentials. So this is what I bring with me. Usually, like depending on the length of the flight, I will either have this in carry-on or in my checked-in baggage. If it's a short flight, I will usually just throw this into the checked-in baggage. But for example, when I was flying to Orlando, it's an 8-hour flight, then I wanted to have more options just in case I finished or not finished. I knew I wouldn't finish this, but in case I got tired of the project that I was working on already. So that's what I brought with me on the airplane. What I brought with me here, though, was a lot. So I brought, of course, this and all the yarn for this. And then I also brought this full bag of yarn. This is one of my favorite bags to throw my yarn into. It's so roomy, and it has a small pocket here. But otherwise it's not like, I feel like I have so many bags that are partitioned, and I really like that this one is not. And it came with my advent calendar from Hex Dye Works. It has their logo here, but I love this dragon on the front. This was drawn by a teenage friend of their daughter, like the owners of this. Like this, I can't talk. This hand dyer's daughter has a friend, and they are both teenagers. And her friend drew this gorgeous dragon sitting on this layer of yarn and knitting. And I keep thinking, who doesn't want to be a dragon sitting on a layer of yarn? I don't know. I would love to be a dragon with a hoard of yarn. But anyway, back to what is in here. And I'm sorry that this is a bit unorganized. My brain, as I said earlier, I'm not sleeping, so I'm tired. But anyway, I brought my, this is the bamboo linen yarn that I showed on my last episode. This is for the Veronica tea, and it's, I think it's probably my next cast on as soon as I finish my Soleil summer top. I will start working on this because I'm really looking forward to having this piece in my wardrobe. Like, this is probably one of the things that I'm looking forward to the most because I'm looking forward to having a top to wear with a skirt or with pants. I also brought this baby alpaca and silk. So this, I brought 2 skeins of this. This was supposed to be either a tank or a tee. And because I'm waking up so early in the morning, it's still dark outside when I go and sit on the patio or the balcony. So I did cast on a project from this that I can just knit in the round, and I will tell you about that a bit later in the episode. I also have my my shawl that I'm working on, that I'm really hoping to have finished by the beginning of June. There's a knitting festival or a yarn festival in Blönduós in Iceland in the first weekend of June, I think it is. And Stephen West is the guest there, and there's a knit along of any of his shawls, and then there will be a group photo with these shawls. So this is how far I am on this. I'm still not any further than I was in my first or second episode, and I should be working on this, but I'm not. But I'm hoping to get this finished before the beginning of June. I actually have a class on mending in that festival, so I'm really looking forward to that. So yeah, here is the yarn for this. Then I also brought this yarn for the Darjeeling blouse or the Darjeeling top. I don't remember what it's called. I will put a photo of it here. This is the Kit Couture silk linen, and I frogged this from a different project, so I know that I really like how this feels, but I also know that I didn't really enjoy knitting with it. But I'm looking forward to the finished project. So yeah, so I brought that, and then. Because apparently when I was packing the morning of my flight, I thought that I would be here for 5 months and not just 5 weeks. Then I also grabbed 3 skeins of this lavender purple yarn because these 2 are cotton, and this is merino. This is Arvetta by Folkolana, which is a superwash merino. I think, no? Maybe it's not superwash. It's merino and nylon anyway. Yes, it is superwash. This is superwash. So I brought these with me in case I finished everything else that I have, which is quite ambitious, and I know that that's not going to happen. But I brought these to make I don't remember the English name for this. It's for babies to put like around their neck so that when they are drooling, that it catches their drool so that they won't get cold on their chest. Sorry. Is it called a collar? I feel like a collar is something that you put on animals. Or maybe it's... I don't know what it's called. My brain wants to say that it's a bib, but that word just sounds so weird, and maybe I just made that up. Whatever it is, that's what I was planning on doing with these. I found a really beautiful pattern that I'm hoping to do. It's a little bit lacy, and I think it'll just look nice for my newest grandbaby. She's only 2 months, so she's going to need these for a while. So I'm planning on using these for that. Who knows? Maybe I'll get that done. Maybe I will just work on this on the airplane on the way home. But we will see. Yeah, so that's this is what I brought with me, and this is also my thought process for when I pack for shorter trips, is just, bringing one project to work on so that I don't get overwhelmed with all of my options. So I've showed you this, and I told you that I've cast on a new project to knit on in the dark, a project that I'm just knitting in the round, because I can do that without having to look at my work, but it's really difficult to knit this, especially when I'm knitting the purl rows, because I have to look at my work and I can't see it in the dark. So I did a little swatch here from this yarn, and I was hoping to get gauge for the Tolsta tee, because I think I would love another one in my wardrobe. They're so comfortable, they're so well graded, and it's such a good fit that I would love another one that's a bit more fitted. The one that I have has quite a bit of positive ease, and I would love to have another one that is more fitted. So I was hoping that I would get gauge for that. The gauge for that is, I think, 24 stitches to 10 centimeters, if I remember correctly. But I'm getting like 26 stitches to 10 centimeters with this yarn, and I actually really like the fabric that it's making. You can see that it's a bit flowy and still has structure on the knit. So I don't know if you can see this. Maybe it's too bright in the light. But it's beautiful, and I really like the structure. I like the way that it looks, and I like the way that it feels. So I didn't want to size up my needles to get this 24 stitch gauge, because I like how this looks, and I think that if I did size up, I would get too loose of a knit, so that I would always have to wear like a tank top underneath, and I'm hoping to not have to do that. So I was planning on just figuring out what size I would need to knit instead. So knit a bigger size because my gauge is smaller. But then I remembered that I actually have a subscription to knittable.com, which is an Icelandic website designed by Nanna. I believe that she's an engineer and a knitter, of course. I'm sorry if that's not correct, Nanna, if I'm botching your your background, but she made this amazing website that has it has like tools to use, so that it has like a gauge converter, so I could have gone on there to check, what stitch number I would need to get the correct size if I were to just knit the Tolsta with this different gauge. But she also has, if you have a subscription there, which I do, she also has patterns that you can just have. Well, I'm not explaining this very well. You can choose, like she has a pattern for a sweater, like a raglan sweater, a hat or a beanie, I think, mittens and socks. And you can just put in your gauge and what size you need, and then it will calculate a pattern for you. And there's also, options to tweak this. So I decided to use my subscription to make a pattern for a raglan tee. So I'm using the sweater pattern. I put in my gauge, both my row gauge and my stitch gauge, and I chose how wide I wanted the neckline to be. So I just measured how wide I wanted it to be, because I wanted to be quite wide and loose. And I put in like the size that I wanted, I put in the ease that I wanted. So you can choose between like either just putting like a number for the ease, or you can choose, fitted, exact loose and oversize. You can choose the length, you can choose, like there's lots of things that you can tweak. So like how many stitches do you want the raglan to be, things like that. So I used my subscription to do that, and I'm so excited to see what this is going to be like. I also chose to do the with a raised back, so the pattern gives me also a how to do the German short rows and the counts for that. So I could have, of course, done this myself by measuring and checking and all of that, but it was so convenient to have this just done for me. So now that I'm just knitting this in the round and increasing every other row for the raglans, this is becoming, the project that I grab on my way out to the balcony when it's still dark out. And I'm excited to have this in my wardrobe as well as the Veronica tee. This is my primary focus project right now. So I'm working on these two things, really hoping to get this finished within the next few days so that I can, put the focus on something else. It's been a really enjoyable knit though, even though it's knit back and forth. I got some questions and comments, not like bad comments, but just curious comments on my last video, I think, rather than my first video, where some people were wondering like how I knit, because I knit in a weird manner. And short answer to that, I learned how to knit continental like we do in Iceland. Everyone learns how to knit continental when we are in school, and most of our role models in knitting, so our parents and grandparents and friends, also knit continental. So, if you're learning to knit in Iceland, that's the way that you will be taught. And and so that's the short answer. But my long answer is that my wrists they're so delicate, I guess, but they're so prone to swelling when I knit, when I have to purl a lot. So when I purl continental, that just doesn't work for me. That just means that my wrists swell up and I have to take long breaks, and I can't, I have to put my knitting down sometimes for days or weeks if I have a lot of purling. So when I realized that that was the reason why I kept needing to take breaks from my knitting, I decided to try to figure out a different way to purl. And if I remember correctly, Etta Lilja, my friend one of my yarn dyeing friends who had a store in Hafnarfjörður where I live, she showed me how to knit like this. So when knitting back and forth in a project that needed to be knit on the right side and purled on the wrong side to get a stockinette stitch like this so that they all look the same, she taught me how to do this without actually turning my work. So normally I would turn my work and then I would purl all the way back, and then I would have to take breaks because my hands would be feeling terrible. But with this method, this is like some kind of Frankenstein English throwing method, which is, I don't think it can actually be called English throwing, because I think that when you're doing like the English style throwing, that the yarn is on the right hand and you're working, in the same, you're working from right to left, just like in continental. But when I'm purling, I am doing it like a mirrored version of that. So almost English throwing backwards, maybe. I will put a small video of me knitting like this that I recorded the other day. When I saw this question, I thought, okay, maybe I should explain how this is and why this is. But I think that, this is such a good reminder that, we as humans, we are so adaptable and we are so resourceful. So if something isn't actually working for you, we can figure out a way to make things work in a better way. I think that this this weird Frankenstein method of knitting my pearl rose is a good reminder of that. That, we can always figure out a way to make things work. I don't know if I had anything more that I wanted to share in this episode. I've talked about the way that I knit. I talked about what I packed and what I'm working on. I do have something else. I have some sewing plans. So my sister and I are actually planning on sewing together. We downloaded the Everyday Culottes pattern from Matchy Matchy Sewing Club. I think it's called Everyday Culottes, or maybe it's All Day Culottes. I don't remember which it was, but we got that printed, and I also bought the low bib pinafore pattern that I also had printed, and I ordered some fabric that I'm still waiting on. I still haven't had a shipping notification, and usually I feel like everything happens so fast here, but this is not happening so fast. So I'm waiting on this beautiful linen and cotton yarn, no, not yarn, linen and cotton fabric to come in that we were planning on using to sew both for the pants and then also for this low bib pinafore, which is a gorgeous pattern by Sewing Therapy, I think. She has a great YouTube channel on here as well, and has gorgeous patterns. I recommend checking those out. I will put her link in the description. But these fabrics didn't come in yet, so we decided to use the weekend to sew anyway. So we went to a thrift store and we bought some duvet covers and some sheets just to make a cheap like a what do you call, like when you make, usually you make this from like muslin to just try on and see how things fit, and we decided to just do that with these sheets that we found at the thrift store. So we've been having a lot of fun this weekend sewing. So we made the culottes pants, and they're so cute. I'm really looking forward to making them from a linen blend, but I have this pair of white culottes pants from a white sheet or duvet cover, I think it was. They're so soft and they look a little bit like pajama pants in this cotton, but I think that maybe we will be able to dye it. And then we've cut out the pattern for the for the low bib pinafore, and that will be our next project. So we're also planning on doing like a trial of the pattern to see what modifications we will need to do, because we are both so short. We are only 5 feet, which is 152.5 centimeters. This half centimeter is very, very important, because otherwise I feel like a measuring tape. So yeah, I have that fabric coming in. We also found a fabric store here close by, which was really fun. It was a fun visit, but they mostly had like cotton fabrics, like quilting cotton fabrics. But I found like a bolt of beautiful silk there that I bought. They only had it in this one color, and I think that this is just an undyed color. I could be wrong, but it feels like it's an undyed color. So it's like almost like a creamy yellow, like a creamy off-white yellow. So I'm also hoping to be able to dye this, but I bought this without a plan, so I have no idea what I'm going to make with this. I mean, when I do this, I can see that it's not my color. So hopefully I will be able to dye this, but this is 100% silk, and it was just too good to pass up, even though I'm trying to be mindful of what I'm buying. So this will be something someday, but not today. So hopefully, you know, fingers crossed, I will be in focus in this video. I'm making more time to knit. I'm really enjoying that. I'm enjoying my coffee in the morning, listening to the birds outside. There are so many animals here that I really like seeing and hearing and being around. There's so many animals here that we don't have in Iceland. There are many different birds. There's actually a bald eagle that comes over to the tree over here and hunts, like grabs the fish from the pond here as well. And that's been really fun to see. There's also a heron that's always here. There are turtles. We don't have any turtles in Iceland. And I can hear the frogs both early in the morning and then also late at night. I can hear the frogs croaking, and we don't have those in Iceland. And I listen to the crickets at night, and those we don't have. So I feel like I'm experiencing always such different wildlife while I'm here, and I'm really enjoying that. I don't know if that's a sign that I'm just getting older, but I think it's great. And it's been such a motivation to just put down my phone. There's nothing there that I need to see that's better or more exciting than what I'm seeing outside the window, looking at the pond and all the animals that were there. I actually went on a walk with my sister to a local park on Saturday morning, I think. And there was an alligator that I was like, they were just so many alligators, and one of them was just like chilling by a picnic table, tanning his belly, and that was quite an experience. Again, something that we don't have in Iceland. So thank you for being here, and thank you for joining me. Thank you for catching up with me. And until next time, I will be here in Florida, knitting and doing some mending. I could see that my pocket is ripped. So I will be knitting and mending and possibly doing some more sewing and just trying to live at this slower pace, even while I'm here on vacation. So until next time,